What is up, everybody? It is Stephanie here with Infernal TV, and I am bringing you my review of Midnight's new album, Rebirth by Blasphemy. So I always thought Midnight was cool because they were, they have that old school Motorhead type of rock and roll feel, hard rock feel, but they're a lot more sinister, they're thrashier, they're aggressive, have such a classic sound. But they still sound very unique and individualistic because I know some of this new wave of old school hard rock or heavy metal or whatever, that whole style is making a comeback, but Midnight does it in such a really cool and unique way. That's why I was really excited when I saw they have a new album coming out. The album is titled Rebirth by Blasphemy. Before I get into this review, I will say that their album Satanic Royalty is my favorite Midnight album because it contains all the elements that I just described before. It's very aggressive, has like that very old school classic sound, but it's dark, it's evil, it's really cool, and I still to this day, because I think that the album has to be like 10 years old. It's a pretty old album, and I still listen to it all the time. So I was expecting that kind of sound with Rebirth by Blasphemy, and I'm not saying it's bad, because it is good. It's just one of those albums where I feel like half of it is really solid, and then the other half of it is kind of... Athenar said that with this album, of course it's very vicious, and I do agree with him. It's not like he went off and, made a happy album. It's like, no, it's still very raw, still very vicious and sinister like Midnight's material is. But he did say he wanted to make it a little hooky. And you can definitely tell that with the album. There are some hooks, mainly in the beginning of each song. Not all of them are good. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but I'll just say this after listening to the album. Some hooks are weaker than others. Some songs just get you right in, and they're really interesting, and they keep that catchy vibe throughout the whole album. Others are they're just weird. It doesn't even sound like Midnight, you know what I mean? One thing I will say I respect about Athenar with Midnight, Athenar didn't significantly change up his sound. It's still very aggressive, it's still very vicious. I feel like since the song is a lot more hookier and a lot more catchier, I feel like maybe that's just a progression of him as a musician. And even Midnight's previous album, Sweet Death and Ecstasy, I feel like, even though that's also not one of my favorite Midnight albums, I do feel like that album is a lot more varied. It's a lot more aggressive and sinister, still very much along the lines of Satanic Royalty than with this new album. I try to at least, even if I don't like an album per se, I at least try and keep it positive. Because I don't want to be one of those jerks on the internet, oh, this album sucks. I can make an album even better than that. I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite. I'm going to try and just give more constructive criticism and say honestly how I feel, but while also highlighting some of the positive parts, because I also feel like that's important for Midnight fans, because who knows, maybe other Midnight fans will be like, fuck yeah, this album's awesome, and then I'm like, so the first thing I will say is this is one of those albums where I think the second half is a lot better. It's like the last 3 or 4 songs on the album are so solid, but it's the first few that are kind of lame, and it's the album itself kind of starts off a little boring. I suggest all Midnight fans give it a chance and they listen to it from the beginning. Like I did. I listened to it multiple times before doing this review. My recommendation is starting the album with the title track, Rebirth by Blasphemy, which is I think the 3rd or 4th song? I don't remember. I don't have the track listing in front of me. One thing I will say about Rebirth by Blasphemy is I feel like it's on the catchier side. There are a lot more guitar hooks than I've used to with previous Midnight material. And you'll really hear that with Rebirth by Blasphemy. It's like the beginning of the song has like the super catchy guitar hook. Like that catchy hook brings me in. And then like kind of halfway through the song, it gets a little weak and it sounds a little redundant. That's the other thing with the album, is a lot of the songs sounded the same, especially like the first few songs. Rebirth by Blasphemy does have like a little bit of a difference in it, you know, but the beginning of it is what really sounds unique. As you get to the end of the song, it sounds a lot cooler, like there's a cool guitar solo and the song ends well, but I feel like that's most of the songs on the album and kind of even the album as a whole. It's like, okay, there's some good parts. Okay, there's some boring parts. Oh, okay, it's back up. Okay, it's getting a little boring again. Now, the song Warning from the Reaper is where the album starts getting good. I think, like I said, I don't have the track listing in front of me, so I don't really remember where the album this is. I want to say it's like either the 6th or the 7th song, something like that, but anyway. This song is this one and the next song I'm about to go over, they're the ones that sound the most like older material. It's definitely on the faster and the thrashier side, which I like. Does it deliver like the older material? No. And like throughout this review, because I'm noticing that I'm doing this a lot, and I try to not do this in reviews, is comparing the new album to older albums. I do this with every single band. I try not to, because you have to think of the new album as its own thing. But it's like, you know, you like a band and you just can't help but think back to their older material. So I'm trying to not do this. But in this scenario, I really can't help it, honestly. I hate to put it that way, but I really can't. Now going back into the song Warning from the Reaper. Like I mentioned, it does sound a little redundant. It kind of sounds the same as some of the other songs. However, this one I actually really like because it is more on like the aggressive side. It's more on the heavier side. And how I mentioned before with some of the other songs is like it gets melodic and catchy, and then it can get kind of boring, and then it picks back up again. With this song, the energy is consistent. Now the next song, or the song after, I don't remember. Either way, the song Raw Attack. That one is probably my favorite song on the album, if not then like my second favorite song. Because that one, like I compared Midnight Sound to like a very like modern and more sinister Motorhead. This song sounds super Motorheady. And I also mentioned that some of the other songs on the album, as they try too hard to sound catchy, and it just ends up sounding a little weird. This one is super catchy, but in a very good way. They pull it off with this song. The other thing with this album is that the solos on every song also kind of sound similar, but with this one, it's different. So I was listening back at that song compared to the rest of the songs, I think it's the drums. Like, you have like the double bass pedal drums, like that very galloping kind of sound, and it kind of keeps the energy flowing, and I think that's really where I get like the Motorhead vibes from, because like the rhythm section's like a very like Motorhead type of style. And now, forgive me because I am not a guitar player, so I can't go into like specifics like notes and techniques and blah blah blah, you know, because I don't know any of that stuff. I will say the solo is very much like a old heavy metal type of solo. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, because it's definitely a lot more complex than the other solos that they've played on this album. And I mean, it's not like crazy technical, whatever, but they definitely threw in like, I don't know, accents, or I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but to overall just make the solo like a little bit more interesting, to make it stand out a little bit more. Now the last song is You Can Drag Me Through Fire. Usually, because I've done I don't know how many album reviews in my whole lifetime, usually the end of the album is where an album fails. However, there's an exception with Rebirth by Blasphemy, because I think this last song is probably one of the strongest songs on the album. So this song immediately gets me with the intro, because like I mentioned before, as Midnight's been kind of following a more like melodic and catchy vibe with this album. It's very hard to have like melody in a song, but still be powerful and not sound boring. And I feel like with this song is they really got that, like, this is a very powerful song. Because that intro, like, yeah, sure, it's melodic, but it has that, like, power to it. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. The best way to compare You Can Drag Me Through Fire is think of, like, old school heavy metal, like classic heavy metal songs, because this song kind of follows, like, a similar vibe in a similar structure, but done, like, Midnight style. It's overall a simple song, like, nothing really too crazy happens in the song. They don't really do too much different, but the song itself has a lot of power. So they did end the album on a very, very good note. Probably one of my favorite songs on the album. I really only have 3 favorite songs, which I will go into in a few minutes, but yeah, this is probably another one of my favorites. Rebirth by Blasphemy is not my favorite Midnight album per se. It does have a few really good songs, and I will give them that. Is it my favorite album? No. Just honestly, it's not. Definitely doesn't deliver compared to some of their older material like Satanic Royalty. I feel like the writing for the album as a whole was a little boring. It sounded a little forced. I'm not sure if they were trying to go for like a certain, like, catchier kind of vibe and it just didn't work, or maybe it worked for a few songs and not others. I was expecting from this album was another very raw and aggressive album by Midnight. And it is good for a band to experiment new things, and I'm not saying that Midnight just automatically turned into this super, like, melodic band, because they're still Midnight. They're still super raw. They're still, like, in your face, very thrashy, very Motorhead, you know, with that classic sound kind of deal. But compared to older albums, they definitely tried to implement some more elements, like a little bit more melody into their material, and for some songs it worked, for other songs it didn't. Overall, I give the album a 5 out of 10. Did I absolutely love it? No. Was it a terrible album? No. I mean, I honestly do think Midnight fans will like the album. They didn't go too far off from their sound. There are some solid songs on the album. I don't know about you guys, but for me, there are some albums I would much rather listen to, like, little songs here and there, not necessarily albums as a whole. I don't think this is, for me, an album I would listen to, like, from the very beginning to the very end. But would I turn on, like, Raw Attack or You Can Drag Me Through Fire? Sure, because those are good, catchy songs. They're upbeat, they're fun, they're badass. But like I mentioned, I feel like half the album is super good, the other half is kind of eh. So you can take what I say with a grain of salt, because who knows, maybe you're listening to this whole album from front to back and then you're like, oh my god, this is the greatest fucking album I've ever heard. And if you think so, then hell yeah. Then you just listen to this album all day, all night, whatever floats your boat. And I'm starting to share some of my favorite songs with my album reviews, because I do feel like that's important. So I have 3 favorite songs: Raw Attack, You Could Drag Me Through Fire, and Wording from the Reaper. Because I feel like those are the most unique songs. They're the songs that really give the vibe of the album and they represent it well. And they're the songs that are honestly the best written, they're the best performed. Especially compared to the other songs on the album, those are the ones that stood out to me. Now that I'm reviewing this album, those are the ones that me personally, I will tell the listener, hey, check out these songs in particular. Like, of course, listen to the album as a whole the first time you listen to it, but keep your eye out for these songs because they're my personal favorite. So I hope you all enjoyed this Midnight review. Like I said, the album wasn't necessarily bad. It didn't really meet my expectations. Some songs were good, some songs were not. I'd say for all Midnight fans, listen anyway and give me your feedback. Rebirth by Blasphemy will be out January 24th and it will be released on Metal Blade Records. So when you do get a chance to listen to the album, definitely comment on this video, tell me what you think. Who knows, maybe you completely disagree with me. If so, I want to hear it. Or you can always take a look at the songs that are already out. I know the Rebirth by Blasphemy title track is out. I want to say Rising Scum is the other single out right now, but I know there are 2 singles out right now, so definitely check out those songs if you haven't yet. And be sure to subscribe to Infernal TV's YouTube. Visit our website at infernaltv.com. Follow us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. I will have all the links to the website, the social media page, in the description of this video or on the bottom of the website page, however you're viewing this video. And I'll also have links to Midnight's social media pages and where you can purchase your copy of Rebirth by Blasphemy. And if you've never heard of Infernal TV, then definitely continue checking us out, because we put out more reviews like this, we put out interviews, we put out other fun blogs and other interesting footage. So definitely keep up with everything we're doing, and thank you again for watching. Stay metal, everyone.